In a quiet corner of the country, nestled between hills and golden fields, was a small village where time moved slowly and the stars lit up the night sky. This is where Ibrahim was born. His home was simple. The roof was made of tin and the floor was packed earth. But inside, it was full of warmth, laughter, and love. His parents were hard-working people. They didn't have much, but they gave their children something even more valuable: values. They taught Ibrahim to be honest, to share with others, and to never give up, even when life felt hard. From an early age, Ibrahim loved to watch the sunrise. Each morning he would help his parents with chores, carrying water, sweeping the yard, or helping in the small garden. Then he would set off on the long walk to school, his notebook tucked under his arm. The path was dusty and long, but Ibrahim didn't mind. To him, school was a place of wonder, where he could learn new things and dream beyond the limits of his village. His teacher, a kind man with a soft voice, noticed Ibrahim's eagerness. "You have a light in your eyes," he once said. "You must never let it go out." That light came from the dreams Ibrahim kept deep in his heart. Though he lived far from the big cities and tall buildings he saw in old textbooks, he imagined a future where he could help others, not just his family, but his whole country. At night, under the stars, he would listen to stories told by elders about brave leaders who brought people together. He didn't know how yet, but something inside him whispered that he too could help in a big way someday. In the village, life was not always easy. Sometimes there wasn't enough food. Sometimes storms damaged homes. But even during those times, Ibrahim learned to stay hopeful. He saw how neighbors helped each other, how kindness made heavy days lighter. As he grew, so did his sense of purpose. He believed that with learning, hard work, and heart, he could make a difference. This belief would guide him for the rest of his life. Ibrahim's school was not large. It had just a few classrooms, with old wooden desks and a chalkboard that had been used for many years. But for Ibrahim, it felt like a world of endless possibilities. The books may have been worn, but the words inside them were alive with knowledge, and he treasured every single one. Each morning, he arrived early, often the first to enter the classroom. He helped the teacher dust the chalkboard or arrange the chairs. Then he would sit at his desk, flipping through his notebook, eager to learn. Numbers, letters, maps of the world, it all fascinated him. To him, learning was not just about passing exams. It was a doorway to understanding the world and finding ways to help others. His teachers soon realized that Ibrahim was special. He didn't just memorize answers, he asked questions. Why do countries have leaders? He would wonder, how can we make life better for everyone? These questions showed that even as a boy, Ibrahim was thinking deeply about life beyond the classroom. Sometimes he studied under a tree, using the sunlight to read his pages. Sometimes he shared books with classmates who didn't have any. He believed that everyone deserved a chance to learn, no matter where they came from or what they had. When he wasn't in school, he was helping at home or reading borrowed books by candlelight. His parents were proud of him. Even though they couldn't help with homework, they always reminded him, "Keep learning, my son. Your mind is your greatest gift." There were moments when it felt hard. Some days he was tired. Some days it rained, and the walk to school became muddy and long. But Ibrahim didn't stop. He remembered the stories of great leaders he had heard as a child, people who worked hard and never gave up. He wanted to follow that path step by step. Over time, his efforts began to show. His teachers encouraged him to aim high. They helped him apply to a bigger school in town, a place where he could continue learning and growing. When he was accepted, it felt like a small dream had come true. It meant leaving his village for the first time, but Ibrahim was ready. He packed his small bag, hugged his parents goodbye, and walked toward a new chapter filled with determination. The boy who once studied under trees was now stepping into a larger world, not to leave his roots behind, but to prepare himself to someday return and help the land and people he loved so deeply. Leaving his village was not easy for Ibrahim. He had never been far from home before. The city, with its noise and fast pace, felt unfamiliar. The buildings were taller, the roads busier, and the people moved quickly. But deep inside, Ibrahim carried something that gave him strength, his purpose. The new school was much bigger than the one in his village. There were many students, each with different dreams. At first, Ibrahim felt a little out of place. Some of the others spoke faster or had more polished shoes and newer books. He returned to his country, not as someone seeking comfort or recognition, but as someone ready to serve. He joined a national service program, where he was assigned to work in different communities, supporting development projects and helping to build local partnerships. Some of these places were far from the cities, with limited roads and resources. But Ibrahim felt right at home. In fact, the quiet villages reminded him of where he had grown up. The people reminded him of his parents, his neighbors, his friends. He listened carefully wherever he went. Whether it was a farmer needing better tools or a teacher asking for school supplies, Ibrahim took notes. He didn't rush to give answers. Instead, he worked with local leaders, bringing people together to find solutions. He always said, "When we listen to each other, we build stronger communities." In one village, he helped organize a project to repair a school roof before the rainy season. In another, he helped youth groups plant trees to protect the soil and provide shade for future generations. These acts may have seemed small, but to the people they made a big difference over time. Ibrahim earned the trust of many. He became known not just for his work, but for his character. He kept his promises. He showed up on time. He treated everyone, young or old, rich or poor, with respect. He also continued learning during this time. He studied the challenges facing different regions, things like access to clean water, education, and job opportunities for young people. He asked questions, visited community centers, and spoke with leaders who had served a country for decades. Little by little, Ibrahim's name began to spread, not because of any title or speech, but because of the quiet impact he was making. People began to say, "Here is someone who listens." He never let praise distract him. For Ibrahim, the focus was never on being popular. His focus was on progress, on finding ways for people to live safer, healthier, more hopeful lives. His journey through the countryside taught him something very important. Real leadership starts with service, and service starts with heart. The dream that began in a small village had now become something larger, something shared by many, and though he didn't know it yet, this path of service was preparing him for an even greater responsibility. As the years went by, more people began to notice Ibrahim, not just in the villages, but across the country. His reputation grew steadily, not because of advertisements or loud announcements, but because of something more powerful: trust. Wherever he went, people spoke well of him. They said he listened when others didn't. They said he stayed when others left. They said he truly cared. The country was going through a time of uncertainty. Many people were looking for direction. There were important decisions to be made, decisions about schools, jobs, safety, and the future. In conversations in markets and homes, one question kept coming up: who will lead us with honesty and care? More and more people began mentioning Ibrahim's name. Community leaders, students, farmers, teachers, and elders all felt he could be the one to bring new energy to the nation. They admired his patience, his wisdom, and his deep understanding of the people's needs. At first, Ibrahim was surprised by the support. He had never sought recognition for his work. But when he looked around and saw the hope in the eyes of those who believed in him, he understood this was not just about him anymore. It was about the dreams of millions. It was about building a better tomorrow for everyone. After deep reflection and with great humility, Ibrahim accepted the call to leadership. He stepped forward, not with grand promises, but with a quiet pledge to lead with heart, to listen deeply, and to serve faithfully. When the people had the chance to choose their next leader, their voices were clear. They chose the one who had always walked beside them, not above them. They chose the one who had shown his commitment through actions, not only words. They chose Ibrahim. It was a moment of unity and hope. Across the country, people celebrated not just the rise of a new leader, but the beginning of a new chapter. One built on trust, respect, and the belief that true progress comes when everyone is included. And so the boy who once studied under a tree in a quiet village now stood with the people, ready to guide the country forward, not as a ruler but as a servant, not with pride, but with purpose. His journey had come full circle, but in many ways it was only just beginning. When Ibrahim became president, he didn't rush to make grand speeches or dramatic changes. Instead, he took a deep breath and looked around at his people, the farmers in the fields, the children in schools, the shopkeepers, the builders, the nurses, the teachers. He believed that real progress couldn't come from one person alone. But Ibrahim reminded himself why he was there, not to compare, but to grow. He focused on his studies with even greater determination. His days were filled with lessons in science, history, and leadership. In the evenings, he spent hours in the library, surrounded by shelves of books. He read about people who had made positive changes in their countries, people who led with vision and care. These stories inspired him to keep going, even when things felt difficult. Despite being far from his village, Ibrahim stayed connected to his roots. He often wrote letters to his parents and siblings, telling them about all the things he was learning. He never forgot the lessons his parents taught him: to be kind, to be patient, and to work hard. Whenever he went home for holidays, he brought back knowledge to share, helping younger children with their schoolwork or talking with neighbors about what he had learned. As time passed, Ibrahim grew into a young man. His teachers admired his discipline and quiet leadership. He didn't raise his voice to lead, he led by example. He helped classmates understand their lessons. He treated everyone with respect. He listened carefully and spoke only when he had something thoughtful to say. After finishing his studies, Ibrahim had the opportunity to continue learning at a university. It was another big step. There he studied topics that opened his mind even more: how societies worked, how people could solve problems together, and how good decisions could improve many lives. He also met students from different backgrounds and different regions of the country. Talking with them helped him understand even more about the nation he loved. He listened to their stories, their hopes, and their worries. The more he learned, the more he realized how important unity and understanding were. Though the journey away from home had many challenges, it helped shape Ibrahim into someone stronger, wiser, and more ready to serve. The boy who had once walked to school barefoot was now a young man filled with knowledge, vision, and a heart still grounded in humility. He didn't know exactly what the future would bring, but one thing was clear: wherever life took him next, he would carry with him the dreams of his village and the hope of making a difference for all. At university, Ibrahim began to stand out, not because he was loud or demanding, but because of how he lived his values. He was thoughtful, honest, and respectful. He greeted everyone with kindness and always offered help where he could. Many people noticed this quiet strength and began to look up to him. He joined student groups that focused on community service, education, and dialogue. Whenever there was a chance to help others, organizing clean-up campaigns, mentoring younger students, or discussing ways to improve campus life, Ibrahim was there, not seeking attention, but truly wanting to contribute. One of his classmates once said, "When Ibrahim speaks, people listen. Not because he shouts, but because his words come from a good place." Even professors saw leadership in him. They encouraged him to participate in student discussions and represent others in meetings. Ibrahim never tried to be the center of attention, but he always carried himself with integrity. People trusted him. They saw that he listened carefully, thought deeply, and acted fairly at times. Difficult decisions had to be made about school projects, organizing events, or resolving misunderstandings. While others argued, Ibrahim would often stay calm and focus on finding solutions. He believed that true leadership wasn't about control, it was about service, understanding, and setting a good example. He also began spending more time learning about the history of his country. He studied how communities grew stronger when people worked together and how challenges could be solved through unity and dialogue. These lessons planted deeper seeds in his heart. In his free time, he volunteered with organizations that worked with children, schools, and rural communities. He traveled to small towns where he listened to stories from people who had little but still held great hope for the future. He realized that leadership wasn't about titles or power. It was about showing up, being present, and doing the right thing when no one was watching. As he grew, so did his vision. Ibrahim began to see leadership as more than a role. It was a responsibility. He didn't yet know where life would take him, but something inside him was preparing. He was becoming more than a student, more than a helper. He was becoming a leader, shaped not by ambition, but by purpose. Though the journey ahead was still long, one thing was clear. Ibrahim was no longer just a boy with a dream. He was a young man walking steadily toward it, with clear eyes, a humble heart, and a spirit ready to serve. After completing his studies, Ibrahim knew it was time to put everything he had learned into practice. It had to be built together step by step by step. One of his first priorities was education. He remembered his own childhood, walking miles just to attend class. He wanted every child in the country to have access to a safe school and a good teacher. New classrooms were built, old ones repaired, and more resources were given to support learning. He even made surprise visits to schools, sitting with the students and asking them what they hoped to become. He also worked hard to create more job opportunities, especially for young people. He invited experts, business leaders, and community members to share ideas. His goal was simple: to help people turn their skills into income and their dreams into real businesses. Support programs were introduced and new roads were built to connect villages to markets. In the health sector, he encouraged clinics to be better equipped, especially in rural areas. He made sure medical workers had the tools they needed, and he worked on spreading health education so people could live longer, healthier lives. What made Ibrahim's leadership special was not just the projects, but the way he led. He never forgot to listen. He held community meetings where anyone could speak. He traveled often not to be seen but to see. He walked through fields with farmers, visited families in remote areas, and sat down for tea with elders to hear their thoughts. He reminded everyone that leadership is not about being above others, but walking beside them. A leader must feel the ground under his feet, he once said. That's how he knows which path to take. His cabinet was made up of people from different backgrounds and regions. He believed in fairness and inclusion. "We are many voices," he said, "but we share one future." Slowly but surely, positive change began to show. More children were in school. More homes had access to clean water. More people felt seen and heard. The progress was not perfect, but it was real, and it came from unity, hard work, and shared belief. And so Ibrahim continued his work, not as a distant figure in a high office, but as a leader among the people. Every step he took reminded them of something simple yet powerful. When we build together, we build something that lasts. Even with all the progress, Ibrahim knew that leadership would never be without challenges. A country, like a garden, needs constant care, and sometimes the weather changes suddenly, even when the seeds are good. There were times when things didn't go as planned. Some roads took longer to build. Some projects faced delays. Prices of goods changed. And in a few regions, people felt uncertain about the future. Ibrahim didn't pretend to have all the answers. Instead, he remained calm, open, and focused. He called on his team to work even harder, to find better ways of doing things, and to stay close to the people. He reminded them, "We are not here to be perfect. We are here to be present." To respond, to learn, and to grow. Whenever there was a concern, he made sure his government communicated clearly and respectfully. Instead of hiding difficulties, he faced them with honesty. That built even more trust. People knew that their president would not turn away in tough times. He also called for unity during those moments. He visited areas where people were struggling, listened to their concerns, and worked with local leaders to find peaceful and practical solutions. His visits weren't just political, they were personal. "I am your brother," he would say. "We are stronger when we stand together." Even in the face of setbacks, Ibrahim continued to remind the country of their shared dream, a future built on fairness, hard work, and care for one another. He encouraged the youth to stay hopeful and reminded the elders that their wisdom still lit the way forward. In every difficulty, he saw a lesson. In every delay, he saw reason to push forward. One evening during a gathering in a small town, a young girl asked him, "Why do you keep smiling even when things go wrong?" He looked at her kindly and replied, "Because I believe in you. I believe in all of us. When we hold on to hope, we find a way." That moment touched many hearts. It reminded the people that Ibrahim wasn't just a leader in name, he was someone who carried their burdens, their hopes, and their future with quiet strength. The winds of challenge may have blown, but they did not shake the foundation of the nation. Why? Because that foundation was built on unity, kindness, and the belief that, no matter what comes, the people would rise together. As time passed, Ibrahim became more than a leader. He became a symbol of hope for many. People from every part of the country saw in him something they believed in: simplicity, truth, and love for the people. He never changed his ways, though he now lived in the presidential residence. He still woke up early, walked through communities, and asked the same questions he asked as a boy. How can we do better? What do the people need? Children began to learn his story in school, not because he asked for it, but because teachers wanted students to see that greatness can come from humble beginnings. He was once like you, they would say, and look what he became. Ibrahim always smiled when he met children. He cantled to their level and listened. He told them, never stop dreaming, you are the future, and the future is bright. In the countryside, elders gathered to bless his work and offer him their wisdom. In cities, workers carried on their duties with a new sense of pride. Across the nation, a quiet energy had awakened, an energy of belonging, of unity, and of shared purpose. Ibrahim didn't lead with fear, he led with care. He believed that people worked best not when they were told, but when they were inspired. And so, every speech, every visit, every decision he made came from a place of service. He also took care to bring different voices to the table: young people, women, farmers, teachers, small business owners. He believed that every voice mattered. We build faster, he once said, when everyone holds a brick. He encouraged local artists, storytellers, and musicians to celebrate the culture of the country. He supported sports programs and reading clubs. For him, building a nation wasn't only about roads and buildings, it was also about joy, memory, and identity. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Ibrahim stood quietly on the steps of the presidential home. A gentle breeze passed through the trees. His heart was full, not with pride, but with gratitude. He thought of his mother's prayers, his father's hands, the red dust of the village paths, and the little boy who once studied under a tree. Now he led a nation, not as someone who had risen above the people, but as someone who had always stood among them. As time passed, Ibrahim became more than a leader. He became a symbol of hope for many. People from every part of the country saw in him something they believed in: simplicity, truth, and love for the people. He never changed his ways. Though he now lived in the presidential residence, he still woke up early, walked through communities, and asked the same questions he asked as a boy. How can we do better? What do the people need? Children began to learn his story in school, not because he asked for it, but because teachers wanted students to see that greatness could come from humble beginnings. He was once like you, they would say, and look what he became. Ibrahim always smiled when he met children. He knelt to their level and listened. He told them, never stop dreaming, you are the future, and the future is bright. In the countryside, elders gathered to bless his work and offer him their wisdom. In cities, workers carried on their duties with a new sense of pride. Across the nation, a quiet energy had awakened, an energy of belonging, of unity, and of shared purpose. Ibrahim didn't lead with fear. He led with care. He believed that people worked best not when they were told, but when they were inspired. And so, every speech, every visit, every decision he made came from a place of service. He also took care to bring different voices to the table: young people, women, farmers, teachers, small business owners. He believed that every voice mattered. We build faster, he once said, when everyone holds a brick. He encouraged local artists, storytellers, and musicians to celebrate the culture of the country. He supported sports programs and reading clubs. For him, building a nation wasn't only about roads and buildings, it was also about joy, memory, and identity. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Ibrahim stood quietly on the steps of the presidential home. A gentle breeze passed through the trees. His heart was full, not with pride, but with gratitude. He thought of his mother's prayers, his father's hands, the red dust of the village paths, and the little boy who once studied under a tree. Now he led a nation, not as someone who had risen above the people, but as someone who had always stood among them. As Ibrahim's years in leadership passed, his vision for the country continued to take shape. He had never sought glory for himself, but slowly, quietly, he built a legacy that would be remembered not for the titles he held, but for the lives he touched. His time in office was not marked by grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but by the steady progress of a nation coming together. Under his leadership, the country saw improvements in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. But more importantly, the people began to believe in each other. They saw that their voices mattered, that their dreams were worth pursuing, and that their unity could overcome any challenge. Ibrahim's work was never finished, and he never claimed it to be. He knew that change is a long road, and that progress is a journey. Yet, he saw enough change in the smiles of children attending school, in the hands of farmers harvesting their crops, and in the hope of young people starting businesses of their own. But perhaps his greatest achievement was not the roads built, nor the schools opened. It was the trust he built between himself and the people. When Ibrahim walked through towns or visited villages, the people didn't see a politician. They saw a man who had been one of them, a man who shared their struggles, their dreams, and their hopes.